I'm Jody Avergan. Have you heard of Blue Apron? Well, now you have. Blue Apron's mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. The country's #1 fresh ingredient and recipe service, fresh, high-quality ingredients make the difference, so it's important to know where your food comes from. Plus, it's affordable, easy, and full of surprises. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals for free with free shipping. You will love how good it tastes and feels to create home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. Go to blueapron.com/30 for 30.
Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
All right, so the NFL came back this weekend. I believe we were all very excited about the prospect of the return of the NFL, and it came. And, I mean, that was nice of it, right? Like, I guess you guys, thanks for stopping by. Shannon, was there a good game on Sunday that nobody told me about because I was looking up and down? Like, I watched parts of a lot of those games. I guess the closest thing we had to a good game was, what, the Titans and the Raiders?
I think the NFL is doing us a favor here at ESPN and waiting to have their good games tonight for Monday Night Football.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, that's what it is. The NFL is a company, man. Yeah, that's how we got here. Now, we got a wide sampling of mediocre games. And look, it's cool. You can't expect everything to be a shootout, to be super exciting. Oh, I guess Falcons-Bears was kind of good. Anyway, Giants-Cowboys, got that one last night. Ezekiel Elliott playing, because he'll play for the rest of the season. Apparently, they must have had, forgotten to put that on the production notes at NBC where they decided how are we going to handle the Ezekiel Elliott thing, because the man, Chris Collinsworth, was like, you'll forgive us if we, there's things with him off the field, but you'll forgive us if we'll talk about him as a football player. And I'm like, oh, that's what we do now. Like, how do we make the decision that this is going to be the time that we do this? And I'm legitimately curious as to how it was the decision was made that this is the time that we're going to do this. Because on one hand, you could be like, yeah, but he plays for the Cowboys. They try to push it away. Nah, man, the NFL will bring their dirty laundry up whenever they need to on a broadcast, right? Chris Collinsworth was just like, no, I just want to talk about how dope he is. Like, do you have money on the game or something? But anyway, we had that, and we had the Giants. Principal McAdoo and company, although he can no longer be Principal McAdoo, I guess, because of his new haircut or hairstyle he's got. He is now a brushback all-star. So, Shannon, what are you saying? What job did he move to?
Yeah, he's head of security McAdoo now.
Yeah, I saw what you said. We talked about it before, and he looked like he got one of them briefcases that's hard on the outside. But I don't even know if that's what's going on with him right now. Like, I'm really at a loss. He looks a lot like midlife crisis. Like, I get a lot of midlife crisis out of him, as though he is going to leave work and immediately hop into the brand-new Mazda Miata he just purchased and hasn't told his wife about yet. Shane, you think he got a bomber jacket? Like, that's what he looked like. He looked like a man who owns a bomber jacket.
Without a doubt.
He still has his bomber jacket. There he is. Giants are bad, though. The Giants are bad. And I don't even know. All right, so let's try to figure this out. Were the Giants bad? Or was the Giants' offensive line simply bad? Because there didn't seem to be much time to throw, and there definitely was no hole to run the ball through. Pontop Perkins couldn't get anything going. Some dude named Orleans had one good run, and that was basically it for the whole team. He had a 12-yard run. All right, let's really be real about this. Orleans Darkwa had a 12-yard run. The rest of the team ran in this game for 23 yards. All of them, all together. 23 yards. They look bad. Their offensive line, how does this continue to be a problem as such? The offensive line looked bad. The defense, however, I thought actually looked pretty good, especially considering your man Dak looked good. Like, Dak Prescott looks, right? We'll see how it goes as the year progresses. But at the very least, he looked like a better quarterback. Last year, he looked like a rookie who was doing well. He was out there this year looking like, okay, I am, in fact, the starting quarterback. He still can't figure out how to get the ball to Dez Bryant, even when he tries as hard as he can. He targeted Dez 9 times. He only got the ball to him twice. I don't quite understand how this works this way. Like, how it's easier for you to find Terrence Williams than it is for you to find Dez Bryant. I'm not even being funny. I don't even get that. Your man Cole Beasley got himself a couple of catches. How hard he be hating on Switzer, though? Like, how many times do you think they came up to Cole Beasley? They're like, so are you going to take Ryan Switzer under your wing? You can learn by watching me. Yeah, his time coming, I can see why. Actually, no, I don't see why they feel like they need him. They got me. Y'all need two. And by two, I mean undersized slot-type receivers. Undersized slot-type receivers, Shannon. Undersized slot-type receivers. Like Cole Beasley be like, Julian Edelman, I mean, he cool. But why you acting like I'm not right here? Like I'm not right here before you. But Shannon's a Giants fan. He does this New York sports thing. Mm-hmm. You have always told me that you do not enjoy watching the Giants on national television because you're always afraid that they're going to embarrass you.
Mm-hmm. Or when Eli Manning throws a pick and I get bombarded on the Twitter with all the "Sub with your mans." So, Bo, where'd they get that from?
He threw an interception this week, didn't he?
Oh, he threw an interception. And you know how I knew he threw an interception? Because my mentions lit up with "Sup with your man, Shannon."
But who didn't? Who didn't say that to you?
I appreciate it. But you did text me during the game, though.
Yeah, did he throw it in the third quarter? The interception?
I believe so, yeah.
Because that would explain why I missed it. at halftime, I made an executive decision that I knew how this game was going to end. And what do you know? It did, in fact, end that way. Like, it went that way that we thought it would go. But I guess, once Odell wasn't playing, I guess you figured as a Giants fan, the offense wasn't going to show up anyway, so you go on about your business, right?
Basically, like, as cruel as that sounds, I knew once they announced that Odell wasn't playing, I didn't expect very much from that offense. And they showed why. And
on top of it, don't think so much about yourself, homie. We had a feel-good story. Jalen Smith, back. Looked good. Looked good. This is a dude that I don't think that people were so certain that he was going to play again. He looked good. By the way, here is Director of Security McAdoo saying that the Cowboys just got better of them.
We didn't function at a high level tonight. It's one of 16 games. We have to be careful getting too emotional about one football game. But it's one of 16. A lot of effort and energy goes into the first game. You got to tip your hat to Dallas and move on to the next.
Hey, play that one more time. I want to try to count them.
We didn't function at a high level tonight. It's one of 16 games. We have to be careful getting too emotional about one football game. But it's one of 16. A lot of effort and energy goes into the first game. You got to tip your hat to Dallas and move on to the next.
3. I got 3. Shannon, how many did you get?
I got 4 because I actually divided the tip your hat to Dallas and to move on to the next one.
Oh, now did he do tip your hat twice? I felt like he had one of those that he rotated. Oh, 1 of 16 games. 1 of 16 games. So, yeah, we're going to call it 3.5 on that. He decided he wanted to rattle off all the cliches that he could. Here's Eli Manning telling the biggest lie in the world.
Hey, obviously he's a tremendous player, but we got players. We got to play better than that. We got to we got to do a better job finding completions on third down, converting those third downs, and we'll do a better job of that.
Actually, no. To be fair, he is not lying there. Odell Beckham not playing is not the problem. Odell Beckham playing is often enough to obscure the problems. But him playing or not playing is not the problem. I just don't understand. They're not in the same situation as Seattle, where Seattle has an awful offensive line, but Seattle's decided that they're going to try to go low cost on the offensive line, which to me is the equivalent of saying, I like nice cars and I want a nice car, therefore I am willing to endure one-ply toilet paper. I feel like my booty too precious for one ply. I feel like Russell Wilson got to be like, I'm not booty, but I'm too precious for this one-ply toilet paper that y'all have directly in front of me. But Odell him not playing is not the problem. They just have these other problems, and they seem to all be the line, right? Because even if you're like me, and you're not that wild about Eli Manning, I don't know what Eli Manning's supposed to do if nobody can block for him. These receivers seem to be halfway talented enough. Now, Pod Top Perkins and the crew, I ain't never really, I don't know who any of them are. Maybe they might be good, but other teams find a way to pull it off of running backs that I've never heard of. How you going to come out here and just not have anybody that can block up front? Anybody. What did he say? The best lineman is the guard that they drafted to be a tackle, which is never good news?
Justin Pugh, when he drafted to be a tackle with the first-round pick back in 2013, and he's now a guard. And that's your best offensive lineman.
Hey, look, say what you want about the Cowboys. Cowboys know walking into every game, our quarterback will have time to throw. And I can't imagine how relieving that has to be Prescott to know that no matter what happens, I'm going to have time to throw the ball. Eli Manning, he's back there oh, my God. And you know what his face looks like? The exact same as it would look if he won the Powerball.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
We talked just a second ago about the Cowboys and the Giants did not look good. The Cowboys, I suppose, look good enough. I don't know if we're in a position yet, though, whether we know that if the Cowboys' defense is good or not, or whether or not they were playing against the perfect foil, being an offensive line that isn't really a line. It's a perforated line. It's a bunch of dots. That seems to be the best way to describe what it is that the Giants had going on with regards to their front. So I don't know how good the Giants were. I mean, the Cowboys were. I don't feel like the offense for the Giants. Oh, God, they look bad. They look bad. I can't take much long range from anything that happened in that one. But, buddy, let me tell you something. I feel like I watched a handful of action around the league, and the quarterbacking was so bad, so bad. Here's how bad the quarterbacking was. The quarterbacking was so bad that we were trying to put together a poll of the quarterback that had the worst Sunday. And, Shannon, we got 4 quarterbacks on there, right? Can you rattle them off for the people?
Yeah, we asked which quarterback had the toughest Sunday. We're just limited to Sunday since we're not done with the entire week 1 yet. And we went with we have Tom Savage, who lost his starting job to Deshaun. Lost his job and got pulled after 1 half. We also have Scott Tolzien, who threw 2 pick sixes. And we also have, I just went blank.
Brian Hoyer.
You got Brian. Oh, boy. Brian Hoyer. That was awful. And we have Andy Dalton. Yeah, who had, 5 turnovers.
Yeah, now stop and think about this for a second. Joe Flacco faced up against Andy Dalton. Joe Flacco played badly. Baltimore won 20-0. Like, they won 20-0, and Joe Flacco after the game is talking about how hard it was for them on offense, all right? The Texans lost to Jacksonville, who had Blake Bortles, and the reason Blake Bortles isn't on this list is because they won a game. That's it, because Blake Bortles basically put up a Blake Bortles performance. That was it. Quarterback play around the league was so bad. We didn't even think about Josh McCown, Shannon. I guess maybe it's because our expectations of him aren't that high. That dude, he attempted 39 passes, only had 187 yards, and threw 2 interceptions. Like, there's room there. There's so many other scrubs that we could have named. Like, even if you want to try to put your best face on it, right? Like Deshaun Kaiser. I don't think Deshaun Kaiser played badly necessarily, but Deshaun Kaiser didn't play especially well. He's nowhere near being part of this discussion. I think Russell Wilson, maybe we giving him the benefit of the doubt of those 5 dots that he's got in front of him, but he looked like boo-boo. All around the league, man, the quarterback situation looks so terrible that it reminds you, oh, by the way, there are a handful of teams who are not intentionally trying to lose, but are consciously not making themselves better. Oh, Shannon, my bad, forgot. Carson Palmer, he had 3 interceptions. Do you remember that? He had 3 interceptions. Totally forgot. Kirk Cousins was looking like Silky Johnson's coat out there. Not looking especially good. No. Like, at least you had Carson Wentz. But Carson Wentz had some moments out there where I did not think he played well, but the highlights for Carson Wentz were high. Like, Carson Wentz is on that demo, that sort of thing in the demo tape that you put out there to show him that potential. Right? Like, he went out there and he brought it in that way. There were so many bad quarterbacks. And never forget this. The owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the owner, because we blame a lot of what the situation is with Kaepernick on the owners, right? Like, you talk about the owners are conservatives, the owners gave money to Donald Trump, all this other stuff. These are different answers that people come out here with. The owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars looked at them sorry quarterbacks he's had, and he was like, yeah, if y'all want to do that, that's cool. I'll take Kaepernick, whatever. And then somebody asked Tom Coughlin about it, and Tom Coughlin don't even want to answer no questions about why it is that he did not make the decision to sign a quarterback who is 2 times as good as anybody that Jacksonville has on their roster. At least 2 times as good as anybody Jacksonville has on their roster. That man's like, no, we'd rather lose. We'd rather lose. And bless your heart, by the way, if you have made the decision that you are going to root for a football team that said, you know what, nah, we'd rather lose. Like, y'all made that call. You made that decision. You get mad about everything. This team breaks your heart left and right, and the general manager of your squad is like, fine, I'll break your heart even more because I don't care about winning. Sorry, that's what y'all thought they brought me here for? They didn't bring me here to care about winning. They brought me here to give them 3 cheers for the red, white, and blue. By the way, speaking of Jacksonville, they beat the Houston Texans. Shannon mentioned that Tom Savage got pulled. Here's what Tom Savage said about getting pulled.
I mean, obviously, you never want to be replaced. That's not a good feeling, but that's called a team sport, and I'll be here for this team. That's out of my control, so I'm going to be ready to go, and just like I have been for the past 4 years, and that's kind of what trained me for this.
Damn, he's been there for 4 years? Are you serious? No. Should I look that up? He ain't been. This can't be year 4. He can't be there. This dude has been allowed to stay in the NFL for 4 years. Now, to be fair to him on getting pulled, I think it's fair to ask the question is that did they bench Tom Savage or did they save Tom Savage's life? Because I'm not sure how much of what happened in that game had to do with Tom Savage. And I think that Tom Savage is whack. Shannon, what we got here?
This is his 4th season. He was drafted in the 4th round, 2014.
So he's already got a pension. Right? Like this. Wow. Anyway, I don't know how much of what happened in that game was really on Tom Savage. The reason that I say that is there was no time. No time. Like, part of why I would have considered putting Deshaun Watson in the game there is basically Tom Savage cannot protect himself. At least Deshaun Watson has the option of running away and trying to save his life. Tom Savage is a statue. He just dropped it right back like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. Oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God, what am I do? What am I do? What am I do? Somebody get the ball. Like, I watched on one second, like, I watched 3 plays in a row, I felt like, at some point in the second quarter of that game, where it was unreasonable to ask him or anybody else to do anything, given how little time he had. There is one player in the NFL who is holding out right now. You know who that is? That's Dwayne Brown, the left tackle for the Houston Texans. And I feel like if the Texans don't call that man and just say, name your price, if you are Tom Savage, you got to be like, what, y'all ain't got no respect for me? Like, y'all don't care about what happens to me? And now Deshaun Watson, I think, winds up, and the Texans generally wind up in an awkward situation because Deshaun Watson, I do not think he is ready to play in the NFL. I just don't think that's the thing right now. I don't think it's positive for his long-term future to throw him out there. But if your first quarterback can't protect himself, I don't know what you're supposed to do. And this is something that happens to guys who can move very often, where they wind up getting thrown into the worst situations simply because the guy above them cannot protect themselves. Shannon, remember that year at Virginia Tech when they were supposed to redshirt Tyrod Taylor? And then they went out there, and it looked so bad with Sean Glennon, and that they talked to Tyrod about playing just because the other guy couldn't save himself behind the offensive line.
Man, they brought him in on the road at LSU as a true freshman because Sean Glennon looked so bad.
And not just against any LSU team. That was that LSU team that looked like it had 15 men on the field. It was like dudes was jumping out of manhole covers to come out there. But the year after that, remember, they said they were going to redshirt him. And then they threw him out there for one game. I think it was against East Carolina. And they were like, oh, no. We can't do this. This is not an option. So a year where you had decided that this dude should redshirt and it would be better for him to develop, you can't do that because the other guy's too slow to save himself behind your bad offensive line. Now, what in the world good does this do for Deshaun Watson? By the way, the so-called quarterback whisperer Bill O'Brien, here's him explaining why he pulled Tom Savage.
The decision to go with Deshaun really didn't have a whole lot to do with, you know, it had more to do with could we find a spark, could we find somebody that could maybe make a play that could escape the pocket, you know, things like that. I thought that Tom really hung in there and played very tough, but, you know, we had a hard time protecting him, and so I just made the decision to go with Deshaun.
You got to be like, I understand if you're Deshaun Watson, you want to play, but I'm sorry, I feel like that's insulting. It's like that thing they say about preseason games, right? You want to pull your starters in the preseason game because you don't want anybody to get hurt. What, you don't care if I get hurt? Like, you throw me out there. You don't care if I get hurt? I'm the future of the franchise. No, don't throw me out there until Tom Savage is actually hurt. You afraid he might get hurt. Why? Because if I get out there and you afraid I might get hurt, y'all going to leave me there till I get hurt. What's up with that? So many bad quarterbacks, we didn't even have a chance to really talk about Scott Tolzien.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, just like our next guest. Check him out in the locker room, Sundays, midnight to 2 a.m. His name is Jeff Schwartz. Jeff, now you played on that New York Giants offensive line not too long ago. Are the problems they're having those of strategy or just a talent?
It's a talent problem. I think their offense is predictable. There were times when the Cowboys would shift their defensive line exactly where the Giants are running the ball. So that's a scheme issue. But generally, they got beat on just one-on-one pass protection problems, which is a talent issue. You can only scheme that up so many times. And the Cowboys' defensive line, I mean, they're not scary. They're not anyone that you're going to worry about. So it's got to be troubling to put up a performance like that. I know Odell was not playing, but that's not an excuse to rush the ball for 35 yards and get Eli hit all game.
Yeah, now I was asking you about Odell. Obviously it makes a difference having him there, but how much of what happened last night would change just by having another receiving option?
Well, for the Giants, apparently a lot. I mean, the times when Odell has not played, like in 2015 when he didn't play against Minnesota after he got suspended with the Norman incident, the offense was dormant. When he doesn't catch a lot of passes, and last season the offense didn't do very well. If you watched Eli last night, he looked often to Sterling Shepard, who was playing the role of Odell in that game. He took his spot. I mean, he relies so much on Odell and what he can do after the catch. It's short passes and long runs, and they need an explosive weapon like that. And for the life of me, I don't know why they didn't go after Brandon Marshall more. The offense just looked really disjointed.
We're talking to Jeff Schwartz on the right time. Now, you played with Odell. What do you think about the noise that surrounds him as a personality, given how important he obviously is on the field?
Oh, all the guys love him. I mean, look, what it comes down to is how you play on Sundays. So if his antics get to a point where it affects his play, which it has not, then that's a time when players and his teammates would get upset with him or maybe tell him to reel it in. But until that happens, I don't care. No one cared. He was great in the locker room. The guys still like him. He's lighthearted. He enjoys himself. And the thing about it, too, is he practices really hard. And he does these catches in practice as well. I've seen him make catches almost better than he does in the game in practice. So you really can't even fault him for work ethic. The guys love him. That's not a big deal. It's more for the media to talk about.
All right, we're talking to Jeff Schwartz here on the right time. So is there any team that surprised you this weekend, good or bad?
Well, there were more, I think, bad surprises. The Bengals offense, non-existent. I think the Giants, non-existent. The Texans, non-existent. But some good surprises, Jacksonville. I mean, I didn't see that coming. Did you? I mean, we talk about all the talent they have on defense, and they finally showed it yesterday. I watched, actually, I don't know why I put myself through it, but I watched all 10 Jacksonville sacks this morning. And a lot of it's just individual guys winning reps. I mean, they finally look like the talent that they've drafted, the talent they brought in, and they won a game how Tom Coughlin and Doug Marrone want to win, which is Bortles throwing for 125 yards, Fournette rushing for 100 yards, and getting 10 sacks. I mean, that's how they want to win football games.
I mean, speaking of the Texans, Dwayne Brown has to have all the leverage in the world right now, doesn't he?
Yes, him and Odell. They both have leverage. Dwayne, there was – look, I get you're going to get beat, but there was a play where the left tackle actually he knocked down the D-end and then just stopped playing. And Fowler got up, I think it was Fowler, got up and sacked the quarterback. Like, you have to finish plays. And that's what makes Dwayne Brown valuable, is he can block guys, but he also finishes really well, and he brings attitude to that team. So Rick Smith needs to call him and get him back in the building.
All right, we're talking to Jeff Schwartz in the locker room on ESPN Radio here on the right time. Now, quarterback play across the board seemed to be pretty bad. Some of it was backup type guys that happened to be in there. But what did you think watching quarterbacks across the league this week?
Yeah, it's a pretty boring week of football. I mean, a boring Sunday. I mean, just the guys don't practice anymore. Guys don't play in the preseason very much. There's less practice reps now. I think defenses tend to be ahead of offenses when there's less practice time. Guys will catch up eventually, but it was a pretty bland weekend of football, especially for the NFL. I mean, it was kind of boring, quite honestly. I was surprised. I mean, there could have been, the Packers Seahawks, I thought would have been an excellent showdown of two great quarterbacks. It ended up just being a showdown of offensive lines not playing well. And it was sad because I was looking forward to this weekend of NFL football.
Now, what do you think about the Seattle strategy generally? I mean, we talk about this every year where they basically just try to take 5 big dudes, like they get bouncers for clubs and try to turn them into an offensive line in Seattle. Like, what do you think about the Tom Cable experiment?
It doesn't work. They've actually spent the most equity on draft picks in the last 5 drafts. They drafted the most offensive linemen. But they don't pan out. They draft guys with huge upside, but are very raw, which doesn't work in the NFL anymore because of the way we practice now. There's no time to develop linemen anymore, especially for an old school coach like Tom Cable, who's used to doing things one way, which is the pre-CBA. You practice all the time. You have all this time on the field. You can get after it. You can drill guys and work guys, and it's not that way anymore. So it's better to draft a player who might not have as much upside, but is going to be a good football player in the NFL. And Seattle's just drafting guys with giant upside that don't ever get better. And it's a huge problem for them. I mean, you're wasting Russell Wilson. I don't think people realize how special he is as a player. And how special he could be if he just had an offensive line that would give him 3.5 seconds to throw the ball.
Now, you played in the spread in college, and what you hear a lot from these NFL guys is that the spread is not developing guys to be offensive linemen. That's part of why Seattle always feels like they can do things like convert guys. What do you think about that argument, though, that there's not enough preparation coming in, and therefore you might as well just try anybody else?
Well, I don't agree with the last part of that. I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't converting D tackles to O-line in the NFL does not work very often. I know it's worked a couple of times, but I do think that college spread offenses play a huge part in this. However, there are some spread offenses, I'll tell you that. There's certain types of spread offenses, right? There's the throw it around, the air raid spread offense. There's the zone read one. And then there's a spread offense like Ohio State. They're in the shotgun, but they're running pro-style offensive plays. Their alignment are in three-point stances. Notre Dame's the same way. Wisconsin a pro style. Iowa's a pro style. It's no surprise that the best young linemen are all from the same schools, because those are schools that still teach offensive line play in college like they would play in the NFL. So you have a lack of talent, not a lack of talent, a lack of technique in college, transferring to NFL where you practice less, and it's a recipe for disaster.
All right, that is Jeff Schwartz. Check him out in the locker room, ESPN Radio, Sundays, midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern after the Sunday night game. Also follow him on Twitter, at Jeff Schwartz. Jeff with a G, but he's cool, unlike the other Jeffs with a G. My man, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
NFL action has returned. We had a few games that we thought were going to be good yesterday. I don't know how many of them actually turned out to be good, but we thought that counts, so forth and so on. The Packers and the Seahawks, which has turned into a rivalry of sorts. They seem to play every year. It's really also. I don't understand this, because the Packers and the Seahawks seem to play every year, but Shannon, wasn't it also a stretch there where it seemed like the Panthers and the Seahawks played every year?
Yeah, it was a weird thing where you had an NFC West team and NFC South, and essentially it seemed like for a 3-4 year stretch they played every year.
But how could that also happen with an NFC Central and an NFC? Somehow Seattle drew these two. These are their off-division rivals. I don't have any idea how this works, but they seem to play them all the time, right? And there have been momentous games there. There was the NFC Championship game a couple years ago. Russell Wilson drove it down at the end. I think it was in overtime to get that W against the Packers. There is the game with the with the substitute referees. You remember that, where we had the substitute teachers? And for some reason, there was two refs that had made the call, and one ref decided to listen to one and not the other, and then it ended the lockout. That's all part of this series.
The Fail Mary.
Yeah, I got a whole different set of observations about that whole situation that I don't want to share at this moment, but I'll tell you at another time. All I'm saying is that whole moment was a microcosm of life at work for a whole lot of people like us. Maybe not like you, but like us. Anyway, a couple thoughts on that game. Number one, what are you supposed to do behind Seattle's line? Green Bay's line was not especially good itself, but Seattle's line was so bad. And it's so crazy that we keep talking about this team like they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender, while every year being fearful that they don't have an offensive line. And I can't think of any situation prior to this where there's ever been a team that we thought of as consistently perhaps being a Super Bowl contender where they got this one problem. Oh, this little small thing, our offensive line perpetually stinks. Right? Dallas, everything we think Dallas has is on the basis of them having an offensive line you can count on walking in the door. We have no idea what the deal is with Seattle's offensive line. No wonder their defense be so salty. Right? Of course they're so salty. They don't need to be salty at the office. They don't need to be salty at Russell Wilson. They need to be salty at them dudes from between 50 and 79, because they seem to be what the issue is with that team all the time. And they looked bad. They can't pass block. They can't run block. Russell Wilson out there running for his life. Plus, they like to get some running backs in there that you ain't never heard of. Johnny Carson or whatever his name was, they put back there. Seattle's just look, we decided that we put the money on keeping this defense together, which is a choice that I thought was understandable on a number of levels. And you have to remember that the best players on Seattle's defense are basically around the same age. right? So Richard Sherman was drafted in 2011. I think Cam Chancellor was drafted in 2011 or 2010, one of those. Earl Thomas was drafted in 2010. Michael Bennett came into the league in... I want to say like 08, 09, somewhere there. But like all these guys are basically clustered around the same ages, which meant they were all due to get paid around the same time, which meant in order to keep that defense together, you were going to have to find ways to make the money work in other places. And so they've tried to draft offensive linemen to get young guys out there. That hasn't worked because maybe you could get them for the cheap. That hasn't worked. They kind of sort of got a nickel and dime it in the wide receiving core. They got Doug Baldwin. He turned out to be a pretty good receiver, but they kind of got a nickel and dime it around there. Like on offense, it's all about we're going to try to scratch this together. And so Seth Wickersham of ESPN had written that story about Seattle and saying how they had the tension and the defense feels like they're held to a higher standard to the offense, and that's frustrating everybody. And that's totally correct, except for the fact that y'all the ones that's making all the money. Now, granted, Russell Wilson makes a lot of money. He makes a lot of money, but y'all make the money. And this is what it takes. Y'all are going to have to be the ones to carry this all the way through. I just don't know how much carrying they're going to be able to do because, I mean, the Packers, like, their defense is not monstrous, right? Like, I don't feel like that's a team where the Seattle's like, yo, we're going to have to really bring it in order to get it done against a Titanic unit like that. No. I don't really feel like that was what it was. They just didn't have it. And then, like, Seattle couldn't keep the ball. Like, I imagine more frustrating for the defense is not even so much the idea that we're asked to carry you, but can I get a break? Right? Can we get over here and breathe? What they call it? Can I get a blow? Like, is a blow too much to ask? Can your boys get a blow? And they can't. Shannon, they were on the field for 20 minutes and 47 seconds. Excuse me. That's the Seattle offense. The defense was on the field for 39-13. Imagine how hard your chest would be just being on the field that long.
You're going up against a guy like Aaron Rodgers with his snap counts and all the things that he does.
And he's just Aaron Rodgers, right? And in spite of that, by the way, they held Green Bay to 6.2 yards per pass attempt and 3 yards per rush attempt. Like, the defense still brought it. The defense still played well. They still only gave up 17 points. Despite everything that we can point to, they still only gave up 17 points. Being on the field for 40 minutes, they still only gave up 17 points. I can't imagine how furious they have to be about that. I can't. Oh, by the way, here's Russell Wilson. This is going to shock you, but he swears it's going to be okay.
I felt super clear out there. I think the rest of our guys did, too. Some guys made some big plays. We'll have to figure out, what we need to do to get a little bit better. It's really that simple. It wasn't like we were far off or anything like that. One or two plays, one, two, three plays there, here and there, we'd have had a chance. I almost had Tyler on that one. I thought Doug Baldwin looked really good today, too, getting open like always. I don't think anybody can cover that guy. And so we want to stay the course. We're 0-1. There's one game. We have to go prepare for next week. We play at home, and it'll be exciting to go back home.
I should have started counting because the sound is too long for us to play it again. But, I mean, he never breaks character. He's the greatest method actor of all time.
Andy Kaufman.
The only person who breaks character less than Russell Wilson is Rick Ross. Like, that's a show we need to get together, right? We need to get Russell Wilson and Rick Ross together, see which one of them breaks character first. Who do you think it would be?
Officer Ricky.
Yeah, my money's on Rick Ross. My money's totally on Rick Ross. I don't feel like Rick Ross has as much practice at this as Russell Wilson. Like, I feel like Russell Wilson's been in the mirror giving these horrible quarterback speeches since he was 7 years old. Like, he has been training his whole life to not say a word. Like, how amazing might it be that, like, the Russell Wilson that Sierra knows is just a totally different human being than the Russell Wilson that we don't know. Like, Sierra knows, nah, I'm saying Russell Wilson. Yeah, I mean Russell Wilson.
Oh, it goes back to the episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Carlton went to the hood.
Yes, that's exactly right. That is right there. That's it. He was looking like a pirate. Or would it be, or, is that the episode, is it the Fresh Prince episode of Carlton going to the hood and he winds up getting all the way immersed? Or is it possible that the Russell Wilson that we're getting is actually the Fresh Prince episode where Will was wearing the sweaters wrapped around his shoulders trying to holler at that girl, and then he found out that she liked the gangster, and then he came back on the other steeds? Which one is it? Because I feel like I don't know anything about Russell Wilson at all. He gives us all the access in the world for us to know nothing at all about him, except for the fact he's running for his life.
There's one thing we do know about Russell Wilson.
Go ahead and tell him.
He's from a small town named Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, God. Small town, Richmond, Virginia. Like, what else has he said? Have you heard him rattle that off in an interview the way he did for us? Was that something he was just trying that week?
That was new. He was adding that to his cliche repertoire.
Right. He decided, did he just workshop that with us and then decide he was giving up on it? Because I feel like we should have heard that from him in all kinds of other places.
Wrestling, when they have a house show, they go out here and practice before it goes on television. He was out here practicing his small town, Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, like this is what he does in a comedy club before the Netflix special. Like he's just getting his weight up before it goes there. But how much of a problem do you think the Seattle offensive line can be? Because the one thing they have going for them is they have a division they should win, except for the fact that the Rams were out here looking like the number one ranked team in the Associated Press poll, playing against the Colts. Part of that was playing against Scott Tolzien. The other thing with the Rams, though, we know they have talent on defense, right? So even without Aaron Donald, they added Wade Phillips to this equation. And if we know anything about Wade Phillips, we're going to figure out how to get this pressure thing cracking. You know this. So if they get a defense like that, how much offense do the Rams actually need? And apparently, Sean McVay might be the quarterback whisperer that actually does really exist, right? Because we saw what he did with Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins, granted, I think Kirk Cousins was the same dude at all steps in this. But if you saw Kirk Cousins play against the Eagles, you realize, man, that dude is just not good. Sean McVay can make it look a little bit different. Jay Gruden going back to calling the plays that don't really look like the Heat. Sean McVay got his hands on Jared Goff, who was one of the worst rookie quarterbacks we had ever seen last year. Jared Goff put up 3 bills and an efficient 3 bills. How crazy would it be if the Rams messed around and got out there and won this division, right? I mean, I feel like it's too early to say that they will. I feel like it's too early to say even that they could. However, it's not too early to prepare yourself for the possibility. Shannon let them know. You don't have to get ready if what?
You stay ready.
That's what I'm doing.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, just like our next guest. Football season back, so he's back around here. Ryan Clark joins us here on the Right Time. So what'd you think about week 1, man?
Well, what's up, man? I thought some offenses looked pretty bad, man. I thought there were a lot of teams that may have rested offensive players a little too much. But, usually the defense is ahead of offenses, and we saw that in a lot of the games. We saw the Rams defense actually play better and score more points than the Indianapolis Colts offense that they were facing. So those things that come around as the weeks go by. But as it started out, it was an ugly week, but we did get some good games. We got to see some good things when you look at Marshawn Lynch and what he can bring to the Raiders, the Packers-Seahawks rivalry still being heated. So it was a good first week. It's not over yet. We got 2 more games tonight.
Now, you mentioned the Rams. How surprised were you that they looked that good?
I knew the coach would look that bad though. I can be honest. You got Tremaine Johnson on one side. You have Joyner on the inside. Those guys getting pick sixes off of Scott Tolzien doesn't surprise me. Jared Goff being able to hit wide open receivers doesn't surprise me. And so, you're glad that Jared Goff takes another steps and is able to make NFL throws to wide open receivers, but he's supposed to. So going forward, they need to build on that and do that against some good competition because the Indianapolis Colts haven't done a good job of having someone to back Andrew Luck up. They also haven't done a good job of building this team up around him.
All right, Dr. Ryan Clark of ESPN here on the Right Time. Now, it's already been announced that Andrew Luck will not start this coming week. Could they have possibly handled this any worse? It seems like this should have been something at the very least they had some idea of how long Andrew Luck would be out, and now it all seems like they know, but they're just telling us week by week.
Exactly. It's almost as if they're as caught off guard by it as we are, yet they've known about his progression. They've known about his recovery all off season, and you don't address it. You don't go out and get a veteran that you can depend on behind him. And it's not just this injury, Bomani. Andrew Luck takes a lot of hits in the pocket. He's a guy that'll try to run and gain the extra large. He's missed games before. And to not have a backup plan after seeing what your team looks like when he's not on the field just doesn't make sense to me.
All right, Dr. Ryan Clark here on the Right Time. Switching gears just a little bit. What do you think about the rookies that you saw out there? I think DeShone Kizer, even a loss, was a lot better than a lot of us expected, along with some other guys.
DeShone Kizer actually made the Cleveland-Pittsburgh Steelers game competitive. It wasn't the blowout or the whitewash that many people thought would take place. And then you look at some of the rookie running backs. I thought they did extremely well. Leonard Fournette going for 100 yards. Christian McCaffrey, even though the numbers don't say it, getting 20-plus touches and being a positive effect on that offense. You go to Tyreek Cohen in Chicago. I'm talking about this could be the next coming of a Darren Sproles type player. So you had guys sprinkled in that did an amazing job this weekend, starting with Kareem Hunt on Thursday night against the New England Patriots.
Well, you mentioned Leonard Fournette. How long will it be before he's seeing those 9-man fronts? Because as good as he was, oh, man, Blake Bortles was still bad.
Hey, Blake Bortles was still Blake, huh? You know what, man? He's going to see those fronts very soon. You lose one of your starting receivers this weekend as well, so you're going to see some teams stack that box and make Blake Bortles beat you. And for the first 4 years he's been in the league, he hasn't been able to do that. We'll see if he's gotten any better or has any more confidence now that the team around him and surrounding him is a little bit better.
All right, now I want to talk to you a little bit about the Giants, because the Giants look bad, the offensive line looked bad, Odell Beckham did not play. So how much does having him perhaps help their situation with the offensive line?
It helps it a lot, actually, because he can give you that one big play. He can give you that huge splash play that changes the game. If you go back and think about the Dallas Cowboy game late last year when they beat Dallas in a close one in the Meadowlands, the game was tight. The reason they won is because Eli Manning threw a 4-yard pass that Odell Beckham turned into a 60-yard touchdown. It wasn't a game where the offense moved the ball up and down the field. And all offseason, we were so excited. The media so excited. Oh, my goodness, they draft Evan Ingram. Oh, my goodness, they have Brandon Marshall. Sterling Shepard's going to take the next step. This was all predicated on the fact of how much attention that Odell Beckham Jr. garners, how much you have to plan and strategize to stop him. Without him on the field last night, many of those guys looked pedestrian, and Eli looked like a bad quarterback.
All right, talking to Ryan Clark of ESPN here on The Right Time. Speaking of looking pedestrian, the Steelers' offense. We talked about Deshaun Kaiser playing well, but did you expect more out of that Steelers' offense?
I did, and they were just okay. Antonio Brown was Antonio Brown, 11 targets, 182 yards. He played extremely well. It took Le'Veon a little while to get going. He wasn't, the guy we're used to seeing. I think that was to be expected. Ben looked like he had some rust to knock off, but we're talking about a quarterback that didn't throw many passes in the preseason. And so I think that those guys that come around, you start to see Martavius get some more play in the offense and get some more targets and be able to do some things a little more than he did on Sunday. And so I expect those things to change.
All right, now you mentioned the Raiders a little bit earlier, and good to see Marshawn Lynch back, but were you surprised to see them come out the gate with a decent defensive performance?
They did really well. I thought David Amerson came along last year at the left corner position. Carl Joseph is healthy now. You have Reggie Nelson, who's a veteran in the middle of the field. And we already knew what type of pass rush they had. So it was about getting corners that could cover people and make passing hard. Obviously, the Tennessee Titans are no passing juggernaut, but they did an extremely good job. And this team can – it won't be 13 every game, but if they can hold people and make them tough to score on and then milk the clock late in the game with Marshawn Lynch, the way he runs the ball and the physicality that he brings this team with that great offensive line, this is going to be a tough team to beat. And right now, after week one, this would be my pick to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
All right, now last question for Ryan Clark before we let you go. We got 2 Monday Night Football games tonight. Which one are you looking forward to seeing?
I want to see the Saints in Minnesota, and for no other reason than Adrian Peterson. I still think he's going to be running back by committee. I know he's not going to carry the load. He's still on a Sean Payton offense that's going to be pass first. But I'm excited to see him get a chance to go home and just give us that one run where he runs some guy over or runs away from somebody and has an opportunity to show the Minnesota Vikings he still has some power left in those legs.
Now, are you a Dalvin Cook believer?
I am. I think Dalvin Cook is an extremely good player, young player. Add some dimensions that Adrian Peterson didn't have. He's a guy you can use in the pass game. He's a little bit more of a scat back. So I think he will do well, but for him, it's going to be a slow acclimation into getting to those big plays that he was so accustomed to at Florida State.
All right, that is Ryan Clark. Check him out covering the NFL for us here at ESPN. It's good to have you back, my man.
Good to talk to you, boy. Have a good one, bro.
All right, man. You too.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
We were telling some jokes about Russell Wilson. It looks like somebody put their cape on. Let's hit the phones and talk to Fred in North Carolina. Fred, thanks for calling The Right Time.
Hello, Bomani. Hello, Shannon. Good to talk to y'all.
How you doing, Fred?
By the way, this is the real Fred from North Carolina. You had another one on about a month or so ago, so just want to make the identification here.
Understand.
NC State fan, you ask about Russ. Russ is a freshman. When he had 3 great years at State, had to run for his life every time he was there, and he always had. That's what impressed me. True freshman. First time they interviewed him. Well-spoken, all the cliches, and I'm thinking, good Lord. He's been chased all over the place. People tried to behead him with no offensive line help, and here it is. Everything is positive. So Russ has been doing this ever since he was a freshman.
Yo, you're right about that. I forgot about that year where they had to put him in there. In fact, he got that concussion his first game because he couldn't run for his life, and then finally just had to save himself.
He wasn't even going to start, and he got put in as a true freshman. Iris was sitting in Carter Finley, and I said, oh, God, we're going to get killed. They went in there, and he took off, and for 3 years until Tom O'Brien decided that he was going to enforce discipline and let Mike Glennon play because he'd been there all year, and Russ was playing baseball, and he went to Wisconsin. He had to run for his life every year and kept us relevant and had winning records with him doing it. And always positive until, of course, he went to Wisconsin. But he graduated and did it the right way.
There you go. Fred, always appreciated, man, and good to talk to you. All right, now 888-729-3776. Shannon, you remember that first year Russell Wilson was at State where they were so depleted that there was the thought that he might be returning punts?
Had to get their best players on the field.
They had to get whatever players they had.
Even if that meant a quarterback returning punch, yeah.
Yes. Whose backups were Daniel Evans and Harrison Beck. You forgot about Harrison Beck, didn't you? It's like it never happened. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. We were going to talk about Tom Savage, but ain't nothing to say there. Y'all seem to be caught up on Baker Mayfield. Or are people actually charged up about this Baker Mayfield thing, Shannon? Does anybody actually care about this thing with Baker Mayfield and him trying to plant the flag at Ohio State? I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but Oklahoma won a game against Ohio State. I know Oklahoma won the game against Ohio State because I was watching it, but just in case I was not watching it, my mother, who went to Oklahoma, sent me a text that said, I'm sure you saw the OU-OSU game, because she went there and she likes to bring up an Oklahoma wins. And, I mean, that's a game that throughout in recent years, that's a game you could bet on Oklahoma losing. No, Oklahoma went up there and put the hurt to Ohio State, and then Baker Mayfield, because they were still salty about getting mollywopped last year on their own field, he came out there with the OU flag, and he's like, I'm going to plant our flag at midfield. And so he ran out there with the Oklahoma flag, and he brought it up over his head, and then he brought it down to the ground, and he couldn't plant it because it's artificial turf. It's not how artificial turf works. It doesn't go that way. Baker Mayfield had to apologize today. In fact, here is Baker Mayfield apologizing right here.
It was an emotional game. I told you guys that last week that it was. I knew that it was going to have a lot of implications on the playoffs, and so that's the way we were prepared. And so it was an emotional game. And so after the game, it did not mean for it to be disrespectful towards any Ohio State people at all, especially not the team or the players, because they're a great team and a great program. So I didn't mean it to be disrespectful at all. I mean, we do the flag thing at OU Texas, and so that's just something that I got caught up in, an emotional win. And, it should have been something I did in the locker room, so I apologize for doing it in the middle of the field.
If he has to apologize for that to you, you're a dork. Can we just go ahead and say that right now? If he's got to apologize for that, you're a dork. And did you notice what he said at the end there, Shannon, that we do that for OU Texas? Right. Like, they come down, and when they win a game, they plant a flag in the middle of the Texas State Fair, and ain't nobody made them apologize not one time for this. Now we got to apologize because some dorks are mad that he tried it in Ohio. Ohio needs to toughen up a little bit. That's one thing about being a Texas fan, man. Anybody from one of these little Rudy Poo border states that wishes they was Texas, they always want to come put their flag down. Arkansas did it at Texas in 2003. I ain't going to lie. I wanted to set the damn thing on fire. I'm not going to pretend as though, like, I like it, I enjoy it, but you ain't asking nobody to apologize for that. What this dude needs to apologize for is the NCAA investigation that should be spawned by him trying to plant that flag at midfield. And I say that should spawn an NCAA investigation because that's enough to make me ask questions as to whether or not Baker Mayfield is actually taking his own classes. How the hell do you think he was going to plant that thing in a rubber field? Like, there had to be at least one dude that was at midfield when they saw him that was like, hey, but you can't, you. How long do you think it took him before he realized why it didn't work? All right, hold on. I'm going to just kick some dirt. How come no dirt's coming? Oh, yeah, it doesn't work like that. My bad. I'm tripping. But they really made him apologize. Look, man, college football is all about pettiness and robbery in this way. These are not professionals. These are kids, and y'all are into it in ways that you should not be into it, and you demand things that you should not demand when it comes from this. There's no way in the world that this young man should ever have to apologize for this. Now, here is Lincoln Riley, their young head coach, explaining why he apologized.
I think that's something Baker wanted to do. I mean, it's not – I found out after the game, that it happened, and I knew right away that, again, it's not taking a shot at somebody else. He was excited for the way, the team played and in that kind of atmosphere and environment. And he's, as everybody knows, is an emotional guy that, he wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's got a competitive fire that, I think rivals just about anybody. And I agree with you. I think he was letting his emotions out. And, Baker, everybody has a lot of respect for Ohio State, their tradition, the team that they've had before, the team that they have now. That's why it was such a good ball game. So it was no shot at those guys. It was just they were excited about the way we came and played in a great football environment.
Now, he sounds like a dork. Like, everybody just sounds so weak right now when it comes to this. It's not like he took the Ohio flag and wiped his keister with it or anything like that. No, man, y'all showed up. Y'all want, if you don't want people to represent with, the names of their states and flags and stuff like that, then don't name these schools after states, man. Don't do that. This is what it is. This is about representing who y'all are, and I feel like you get to put an OU flag in a stadium. I feel like y'all got me out here defending. The other thing you have to remember, Oklahoma, one of them states that's just a little bit insecure. You need to let them have their moments when they can. You ain't never seen the Grapes of Wrath? Come on, man. They got a lot that they fighting within themselves about their self-esteem.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Our guest joined us on the Shell Pinzo Performance Line, just like our next guest. He covers college football at SBNation.com. Better at it than anybody else. His name is Spencer Hall. Spencer, I'm a little confused. That was the sort of game that Oklahoma loses, has lost fairly consistently for a while. They put the hurt on Ohio State.
Oh, that score is a lie because it could have been worse. There's 2 red zone turnovers, right? And that in itself killed a couple of scoring drives in there. And it really, that should have been, it could have been 40-17 or 42-17. It could have been up there because what they did was outgain them by 100 yards, gain more first downs to dominate the game with what? What was Baker Mayfield working? Who's his bell cow running back right now? Your Adrian Petersons, right? Your Oklahoma name back. He doesn't have one right now. He doesn't have a receiver either. Their leading receiver was, and I pointed this out today, and I will point it out for the rest of my life to show you how good Baker Mayfield is. His leading receiver was an H-back, a fullback who had 98 yards. That's all Baker Mayfield had. Himself, a fullback, and no regard for human life. It is amazing.
Well, the one thing I find interesting with Baker Mayfield that's good for him is we can appreciate him as a great college quarterback without getting caught up in the other stuff. Somehow with Lamar Jackson, we've taken a referendum on him on how he's going to be in the NFL, and we have forgotten, holy smokes, he's good.
Yeah, he's hard to talk about without saying things you can't say on the radio, right? like he's almost like FCC fine worthy when you talk about how good he is. And the scary thing was, and I know it was against UNC's defense, okay? But watch Lamar Jackson on UNC. Just go watch the cut-ups. Go to YouTube. Somebody's already cut it up. Watch everything he did against UNC. His ease in the pocket, his decision-making, his flow, his understanding of that offense. He is now at the point where it doesn't look like he's working as hard as anyone else on the field because he's that good. Last year he was obviously faster, running around, obviously this thing that was a little more talented than anyone else working between the sidelines. He is now this thing that is just making good decisions and measuring himself and still getting as many yards. He had 6 TDs and over 500 yards of offense, and I swear he almost didn't break a sweat against UNC.
We're talking to Spencer Hall of SB Nation here on The Right Time. Now, one thing that's interesting when people start talking about him and what he'll be in the pros, and I think they're fair questions to ask, but processing information isn't one of them because Bobby Petrino basically tells his quarterback, protect yourself. Everybody's going out for this route.
Yeah, and you should also consider this. Protect yourself and or Lamar Jackson always has the option to run, right? So when it comes to information being processed, Lamar Jackson always has one more option than everyone else, maybe two more depending on the run play or the run option being called, right? So, whereas every other – I always think when there's a mobile quarterback, their options actually get trickier because they could create on the way. So the menu's actually bigger. In terms of what he's doing now, though, watch how he hangs in the pocket. Like this is an overt thing that he's doing, is hanging in the pocket and making throws from the pocket in order, I guess, to show that, at the next level he's going to be that good. I think if anyone doubts that he could do it, then they're not watching what's happening, right? I'm not saying he'll be successful at the next level because, honestly, if you know what makes a good NFL quarterback, you should be way richer than I am, right? But based on what I've seen, this is not an accident. Nothing Lamar Jackson does is an accident, right? If he's 2/3 as good in the pros as he is right now, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Now, speaking of places Bobby Petrino used to work, which Louisville kind of counts as, is this what I think I saw it the fourth time in 12 games that Auburn has had a game where they did not score a touchdown?
That is correct. That is correct. They did not have, I believe they had 115 yards offense total. That's Gus Malzahn, offensive wizard. Yeah, Jarrett Stidham didn't have 100 yards passing. That's sort of normal because quarterbacks at Auburn have struggled before. What's not normal is that they didn't rush for 100 yards. They were terrible on the ground, and that makes your quarterback terrible. There's something very, very wrong with that offense right now, and that's before you think about the fact that they had 11 sacks. Clemson had 11 sacks. That's a really good defense. When you have 11 sacks, there's some sort of nervous system wasting disease going on with the communication in your offense.
Well, one thing, though, we've seen Auburn quarterbacks not throw well, but Jarrett Stidham is a top 100 recruit who was recruited to throw the ball, right? Like, this isn't Nick Marshall or any of these other guys. He's supposed to be able to throw the ball. So is this a matter, has the conference just caught up?
I would put it this way. The best quarterback that Gus Malzahn has had as a head coach was a converted defensive back. And he has a top 100 passer who barely couldn't get to 100 yards. And looked awful against Clemson, against a defense that's good, but they're not that good. So have people caught up? Yeah, it's entirely possible that they've caught up in terms of what Malzahn does and that they're not adapting. The rest of the season will play that out, but it's weird that over time what Tuberville became at Auburn, which was a defense-first coach struggling for anything like offense, is what Gus Malzahn's become over time.
Well, I think the other moral of the story that we have here is that Cam Newton made a lot of millionaires, man. A lot of millionaires.
All Cam did was make money. Like job creator Cam Newton. That's it. Just this an entire economy unto himself, unto this day. Cam Newton. There's a lot of people who owe Cam Newton money.
Yeah, I feel like he and Johnny Manziel should both run for office, right? We create jobs.
That's all they do. That's all Cam Newton did. Cam Newton created jobs across multiple states. All right? He really did. And if you also look at Cam Newton, here's the thing. This is the like talent gulf between somebody who's really good in college and somebody who's not. If you look at somebody who's an amazing quarterback like Manziel or an amazing quarterback like Cam Newton, look at what happens afterwards to properly gauge the talent and ability of everyone else around them. Because after both of those people left their respective programs, there were some cold, hard facts laid out about what they really had, i.e., hi, Kevin Sumlin.
But at least A&M when Manziel was there had like first-round picks all over the offensive line and Mike Evans outside and Christian Michael, who's like a first-round talent. It was Cam Newton, Nick Fairley, and like 83 pips at Auburn.
Yeah, you needed – yeah. But the weird thing, too, is that when it came down to a championship, what did you need at Auburn? You needed Michael Dyer to not be down, right? And yes. I'm not going to get any death threats over a single radio spot, so I'll just say that, sure, Michael Dyer was down. Or he wasn't down. He wasn't down, Auburn fans. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, and all of this, you could be super talented, and you're still going to need, like, one obscure dude to get real lucky in a game to pull a championship off.
We're talking to Spencer Hall of SB Nation here on the right time. Switching gears, am I tripping and thinking that USC looks scary good against Stanford? Like USC is legit national championship contender good?
Yeah, they had 200-yard rushers. Like when people say, oh, man, that offense is just a typical Pac-12 skill guys on the outside with a great quarterback and some offensive linemen who can pass block. Nope. Go watch how they mashed out Stanford in the fourth quarter. It's kind of shocking. And I don't know if that says more about Stanford or USC at this point, but give USC credit. You know, they've got the ability to pass to get up and finish a game and pull away. If you don't watch, like, I will stump for this every time I write her on radio. I love watching Ronald Jones second run the ball. He's a violent runner, just high-stepping, does that little mule kick, that little like Walter Payton mule kick when he wants to get free of a tackler. He's breathtaking. And as long as they've got that, the other thing is defensively, they were able to go toe-to-toe with Stanford and really limit them on the ground, which was a concern with the USC defense because they let Western Michigan rush for over 200 yards. They did not let Stanford do the same. So, yeah, they could be super scary good. I go to see them versus Texas on Saturday, and I won't tell you how that goes.
I don't want to talk about that game. I don't want to talk about that game. I see nothing productive in talking about that game, and we now have to go, but I was definitely going to say about that USC team, credit to USC for having the courage to hire the most boring coach I've ever seen in my life, because apparently it worked.
No, hired old Clay Helton, old no-drama Clay Helton, and they're just, perking along. Let's just look forward to, like, Clemson-Louisville, because now you get to see Lamar Jackson against a real defense. So if he's half as good, he puts up 250 and 3 TDs. That's all.
That is Spencer Hall. Check him out, SBNation.com, also EDSBS.com. My man, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back tomorrow.